April 27, 2011, early in the day, at the White House press room. The press office handout is a copy of the president's birth record as a sheet of paper, in order to dispel the controversy and arguments about his true nationality. This is why it was done. Just before Obama actually appeared to personally address the issue, photographer J. Scott Applewhite made a quick copy of the document to transmit to the AP, Associated Press, Bureau in Washington, so it would then be the job of the AP reporters to use their sources and resources to validate or question the information. The photographer said it wasn't art. It was handheld. He was just acting basically as a human Xerox machine, is the quote he used, when asked by a non-birther, because birthers didn't ask him anything, apparently. He was simply relaying the information on the document, not really caring about the quality of it, and may not have done the usual color correction, which is normal to adjust proper skin tones, so it has a bluish tint. Now, that's his quote. And we have him to thank for me being able to do this analysis today, because by not correcting it, we have, as close as we can have, to a raw copy of the actual data and of the actual birth certificate. You notice those are two separate things. The camera used, according to the posting where someone just flat out asked him, may have been a Canon EOS 1D Mark IV. He was only asked about this years later, but that was most likely what it was. At the time, he remembers that the images he took with whatever camera he was using that day specifically ended up being 40 to 50 megabytes, and it was a 16 megapixel sensor in the camera. And at the time, he was pretty sure he didn't have a macro setup or lenses, and he probably would have used a 50 millimeter or a 24 to 70 zoom lens. The camera itself weighs almost 3 pounds, a little over a kilogram, and it's a 6-inch by 6-inch camera. And I've held one of these, or a very near approximation of it. I recognize it. And these things are pretty heavy-ass machines. You drop one on your foot, you're going to feel it. This is the PDF version of the data we're going to be discussing. Now, the first things you'll notice is that it is a horrible job making an image. Everyone complains about the quality, and this is the first mistake that the Obama administration and or the Hawaiian government are guilty of. They did not do due diligence when concerning an extraordinary situation. Most of you have a birth certificate that has a lot of these characteristics of it, depending on what state you're in, when your birth certificate was first built, when it might have been realigned with new standards. If you're old enough, it might have been reformatted, meaning they would have literally cut and pasted it together to fit a current format. The reason for that is so that a person can go through hundreds and hundreds of birth certificates in the printed out format and be able to use this information. And sometimes it's literally a printout, sometimes it's a photo image that's dumped onto a sheet of paper as a printout, and sometimes it's literally a photo image done through a photocopier. The only thing consistent with all of this is that it became so inconsistent at one point that each and every state started doing something simple. Whenever somebody asked them to give them a new version of their birth certificate, they would give them the computer printout version short form. What is this short form? It's literally somebody sitting there looking at what's on the screen or in a book and dead ass typing it into a computer or typing it out on a typewriter. That was done a lot, by the way, in the past too, to put it into a standard format and rebuild a certificate using the current format. Now, it's made on purpose not to look like the one you would get when you were making it so that you can tell the difference, but it is made to a standard so that the information is there. And the only thing saying that it's an authentic birth certificate is the assertion by the person who sat there and made sure it has the same information. It doesn't have to have the same format. That is the short form printout that's asserted by your state to be accurate data. This has two reasons. One, because of all the inconsistencies between states and counties and even hospitals, and also information that was entered that's no longer considered important. They omit things like whether or not you were born on a plantation. Yes, we're going to go there. And It also made it to where if you got a hold of one of those, you couldn't generate any of the older files from it because you'd have to guess what format it was. The longer form, or long form, or full birth certificate, or certificate of live birth, depending on which state and county you're in, it's called something different, is a completely different document. And that's important for this conversation. So let's go there. This is what it looks like when you take a photo of what they handed out at Obama's press conference. It doesn't have the green background that's that crosshatch of green characters or letters or lines, actually. They're just lines. It does include this weird aberration of the word of and the that most of you don't know what it's based on. And it is not a printout. Not exactly. This is the copy of the image that was made by that photographer. First, we're going to authenticate whether it's a photograph. Upper left-hand corner, we're going to look at the word state. We're going to zoom in obnoxiously. You'll notice color aberration, rainbow effect, or rainbow distortion, or chromatic distortion. The upper left-hand corner of the image, this is, by the way, an image of a scanned image from a photocopier that used optical method, not a digital one. It has a very consistent pink, we'll call it red, color on the upper left-hand corner of anything black. And then on the opposite side, you get more of a purple or bluish tint. Upper left-hand corner, blue towards the center, red towards the outside. Upper right-hand corner, zoom the hell in. Is it the same or a mirror image of it? It is a mirror image. It's reddish pink on the outside and blue or purple towards the inside edge, towards the center. And also on the top of the line, it's reddish or pink, and on the bottom it's more purple distortion in color. Chromatic distortion confirmed now. Let's go over to the word April being indicated as APR. By the way, if you're not aware of it, that is a rubber stamp. A lot of you have worked a job or work at one where you can go look at one. That's what it looks like, okay? And this rubber stamp indicates that that stamp hit the paper April 25th, 2011. That's when the image was generated that we're looking at here, approximately. The 25th of April? Let's see. And now we get blue towards the center, blue or purple, and red or pink towards the outside edge. Let's go all the way over to here. Are we going to get blue towards the center or red or pink towards the center? We get red and pink towards the outside edge, blue towards the center. And in the center of the document, I'm going to call it arbitrarily here because I want to look for something we can use for a bullseye. So we're going to use the 12A's question. We're going to use this as our bullseye or crosshairs. It's not in there. I wish it was. Very little chromatic distortion, but there is some. There's slight bluing to one side or another, slight reddening. And if we go further over, we get blue towards the center and red and pink towards the outside. And if we go to the opposite side of the document, we should see it reversed. And we do. It's blue towards the center and pink or red towards the outside edge. This is chromatic distortion caused by an imperfect lens. No matter how expensive it is, it will have this, of a very high contrast item, a black and white image of a sheet of paper. Now, what does this mean that it doesn't have the green, like woven pattern behind it? When you work in data files, you work with the cleanest, or, sometimes and, but or, the original document. And as I've mentioned, you can get an incident where somebody regenerates these things by typing them up because there's damage or because it doesn't fit formats, or it has information in it that is legally required to be removed because it's odd or wrong. In here you will find place of birth inside the city or town limits or not. And it also says county and state or foreign country. And it also says, is your residence on a farm or plantation? So you might understand this is the 1960s. And this is a birth certificate for a little black baby born in Hawaii to a white lady who's 18 years old from Wichita, Kansas, who had a husband, or at least the father, from Kenya, who was a university student. Now, first things first, this is a photograph. And it's a photograph of a sheet of paper that was a photocopy of a physical object, probably, very likely, a photocopy of a book, like it looks like. It has a curve up here. This is a book. This here, from here up to here, is an image from a book that was transferred to this sheet of paper. Okay? And it contains just the information concerning the person who's being requested about, Barack Hussein Obama II. And down here it says, evidence for delay or filing or alteration, and it's blank, which means up to the point that this information was pulled out of a book, it shows that there was no alterations, addendums, or delays. This was accepted and filed August 8th, Register General and or local registry by somebody, I can't pronounce the name, last name Lee it looks like, 1961, August 8th. Obama was born on the 4th of August, 1961, and his mother signed this on the 7th, and this person here, the attendant physician, the MD, signed it the next day. They both state, by default, I hereby certify that the above stated information about this child being born alive on the date and hour stated above is accurate, to the best of my knowledge. I'm collecting them both together. On 1961, August 8th and 7th, two people stated that there was a baby boy born there that was black and mama was white in the 1960s. Now, what you think about that? Now, all the way long time later, 2011, somebody did this. If you're not aware of it, I'm sure most of you already know it. This is a rubber stamp. It's one of those that you've worked with. Unless you've avoided working for a living, you've used these things. And yeah, that's the garbage quality of a rubber stamp. So let's try to ignore the very high likelihood that this here is a rubber stamp as well, because it fucking is. This is a mushed up part of the rubber stamp. Every rubber stamp you've ever found that's used has this problem. Go on. The signature doesn't show that mushing effect. The registrar stamp down here does. That's a registrar, not somebody who's certifying a document in a way with stars and stickers and imprints. It's not it's not anything else. This information here is the actual image of what was considered a certificate of live birth data file for proof or evidence as of 1961, and it is consistent with other images of similar birth certificates that actually include, without any changes, 1961 style birth certificates from the state of Hawaii. Later on, everybody standardized on a different one that could be printed out, because then you could get rid of any kind of ghosting effect and visual effects and do a really good job. Next, I want to point out, lastly, that the chromatic distortion here is duplicated in the lines even though they're curving, which means this chromatic distortion, this rainbow effect, happened after this was dead-ass imaged, probably with a photocopier, an old-style powder, lamp black type photocopier, and that this is caused by the camera. So that was the 27th of April. That was April 25th. 2 days afterwards, the state of Hawaii sent this raw version, not with a background, to the president's offices in the White House to get rid of this problem. And this one doesn't seem to be the one the birthers like to talk about. And let's not forget that he was born to somebody who was born in America, and he is an American. Well, both of them have to be Americans. No, they don't. That means about 80% of the Republicans who are illegitimate bastards can't prove they're Americans either. Just saying. Neener, neener. So anyway, to review, it's a photo. It has all the errors and characteristics of a photo. J. Scott Applewhite gets all credit for it. And yes, I stole this from another website that didn't want me to grab it off of their website. Too bad. Associated Press probably carries the copyright. Please don't sue the shit out of me. And it isn't a bluish tint. It's a rainbow effect caused by chromatic distortion, because this camera, no matter how awesome it is, can't correct completely because we're using glass lenses. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.